Hello and welcome back to Car Rental University. I am your host, Alex Withrow. Today we're going to talk about Hertz's big sell-off of Teslas and what it means for the EV market and you as well. Before I get into that, click below, grab the 5 things you must do before starting a car rental business. That also includes the Car Share Growth Guide, which gives you a city-by-city, market-by-market, zip code by zip code breakdown of which car share platform is strongest in your market. Lots of good information in there. So let's get into this. I've got a lot of notes here today. Been thinking about this a lot. The Hertz sell-off of Tesla is interesting. And I think that people out there, I've heard a lot of the commentary on this. I think people are drawing some of the wrong conclusions about the rideshare market as well as electric vehicles. So let's kind of dive into this. So first of all, obviously, Hertz made a system-wide decision a couple years ago to just fully commit to electric vehicles and go in on rideshare drivers. Now, from what I knew about their system, they were not charging that much. Most drivers would come to me and say, hey, I can rent a Tesla at $250, $300 a week. And I think some of that was being subsidized on some level, but in general, I did not think that they were charging a lot for those Teslas because there has been a big push to get more EVs on the road, especially in the rideshare space. This is a very big mandate with Uber, and this is also, companies like Getaround and Turo are also pushing this very hard as well. But there's a couple assumptions. I think they made what they saw in the market, I think, was absolutely correct. We all know that there are as many rideshare drivers as there are rocks on the ground, and many of them are looking to rent cars. And a lot of times people don't understand, well, why don't they just drive their own car? Well, many times a lot of these drivers are new to the country. They may not have cash or credit, and they just want to work, and they want to drive for Uber. It's a pretty easy system. So they go and rent a car, and they don't have to deal with repairs, etc. So, and I think some of the kind of, I think, Hertz's obvious problems were, frequency of accidents in the rideshare space, right? That happens because you're driving a lot, right? So that happens. Loss of use and cost coverage, right? So obviously with EVs, there are, if you bang up the small battery on a Tesla, that's a $250 fix. If you bang up the big battery on a Tesla, that's a $20,000 to $25,000 fix. So that's where, they probably got whacked. The battery damage is really kind of the main thing that can really hurt you in that space. So I would say that, they made a pivot that they probably went a little too far in on this. I would still say though that the rideshare business is still very strong. I mean, the demand is still massively strong. I just think no one has really figured out the insurance piece entirely yet, and also the operational creativity. I think that Hertz probably struggled on this front because I think they probably just let any Tom, Dick, and Harry rent their cars, and that's probably why they had so many accidents. I think there has to be, and look, I just did a video about this the other day on how to vet HyreCar drivers. Now, when I'm obviously vetting drivers, I'm not a scaled operation. I'm not as big as Hertz, right? But there is technology now that can assess a driver's, behavior. And, for example, GPS systems now can tell you how often they're slamming their brakes, hard right turns, whatever. So this data is out there. In my opinion, I don't think they put all this together and really, created a synchronized system that made it work. Another thing I want to say is, I don't think the economics of brand new EVs at this point make total sense in this space. I will say I think used EVs make total sense in this space. So that's a key delineation because, in my opinion, you have to keep the cost on these cars as low as possible. and if you're gonna work with like Tenet or any other company out there that's leasing or financing electric vehicles, you still got to keep that monthly. If you're going to finance or lease, still got to keep that monthly payment low as you can. And in my opinion, it's harder to justify the economics when you've got some of these financing agreements coming in around 11, 12, $1,300 a month. That hurts the economics of it quite a bit. But if you can get it down to $400, $500, $600 a month, it totally makes sense. So, and I think we're going to see more of this in the coming months and years. Is that the used EV market for rideshare is really what I think will is the way I think things are going to move. Now, that said, insurance. Insurance is a very complex game. I think it just takes there's a lot of nuance in this space. Interestingly enough, I will tell you that rideshare is becoming a much more predictable insurance market because there is so much data on it now. Whereas car share, which, Getaround, Turo, etc., is a little more less predictable to insurers because there is not as much data on it. And when a driver is renting a car off of Getaround or Turo, they don't know exactly like what's going to happen or what they're going to do with that car, right? They have a general idea, but they don't know if they're going to go drive 10 days straight or barely at all. So interestingly enough, the rideshare insurance market is definitely warming up, but it typically is more favorable for scaled providers because they can spread that insurance and that risk across a larger pool of cars, right? But I do think that in my opinion of Hertz, I just don't think they had enough operational creativity. I think they're too big to kind of implement and swiftly change. And I think that, I think what we'll see in the future with private rental agreements is more AI type technology that can assess how risky a driver is. I think that's really coming down the pipe pretty soon. I think it's very important because, rideshare drivers obviously inherently have more accidents, but we obviously want to mitigate that as much as possible, right? So, and that just brings me to my point that I think that, risk behavior software is going to become a really crucial part of this industry eventually. So my overall stance on this is that, I think there's a lot of naysayers about electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are not going anywhere. Whenever I get into an Uber, and if I'm in an Uber car as a rider, and I am in an electric vehicle, which happens quite a lot in Miami, I always love talking to the drivers, and I love talking about, does this rental make sense, or this ownership of this EV, does it make sense for you economically? And I would say most of the time it does. And so I do think that there are adjustments that need to be made in this industry from an operational standpoint. Obviously, Hertz really dove into this head first initially, and they were very much the pioneers in this space, and they got the arrows in the back. But I do think that there will be new iterations of this type of model, but it's going to look a little different. And I think that EVs are not going anywhere, frankly. The EV market, while it may be a temporary setback, I think it is still growing. It's just a matter of time before the economics of it makes sense. There's a lot of things in play, I can tell you, that are very close and are very, close to making the economics of this make sense for everyone, small and large fleet owners. So that's my general stance on it. I do think that, overall, there's been a lot of sounding of the alarms of, about the EV market. I think this is a temporary setback for the EV market, but I do think it's going to continue forward, and I think we're going to see a fundamental shift in the economics of it in the coming months and year. So drop your comments below. I'd love to hear your comments about that. Click a like button if you thought this was informational. And before I go, click below, grab the 5 things you must do before starting a car rental business. And I will catch you in the next episode. Thank you.